you're at the top of the totem pole if you're dancing with Michael Jackson at that point. I mean, there is no other like limit from there. You're at the top of the mountain. I would believe if you're dancing for Michael Jackson,
you are the cream of the crop, 100%. Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
I am the cream.
What's up, everybody?
My name is Anthony Irvin.
You beat yourself?
Yeah, CB myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jim Green.
Don't even need a hit of traffic light.
Okay, good.
Welcome to
One Set.
Dude, so I think it was last week. I was going down one of those like YouTube rabbit holes, and I ended up getting into this Prince and Michael debacle of, I always knew that they had some resistance for each other, but I started seeing, videos of like, Michael talking about Prince talking about Michael, and then it gets into like, their secret history with each other and how this person was saying this about that person, and they had this like secret beef with each other, but it was never really public because they never really spoke about it publicly, which I thought it was pretty, classy of both of them, because they're both in general the top two greatest artists that we've ever seen from the genre, because they both came out rightfully in the same timeline of each other. But this sparked a thing to kind of talk, because the whole thing is like, oh, are you a Prince person or are you a Michael Jackson person? So knowing that you come from the dance era, and you've said multiple times on the podcast that your first inspiration was Michael Jackson, and from music, I didn't really I not that I'm not a Prince fan. I didn't really get too much into Prince until later in his life, and more as I became more skilled in my guitar skills and being influenced by other musicians like Prince. So I thought we can talk a little bit about the two, and not really make a debate of who's better, but like maybe compare and contrast the two and talk about our favorite moments and certain things about them.
Yeah, so this is such a fun and also such a difficult conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because I think they're both great in their own right. Like they're okay. I think I can speak for most people and say Michael Jackson is a more like Hulk Hogan household name. If anyone in any house says the name Michael Jackson, most people are familiar, even kids now still, right? And if I run across like teaching like dance students, and they're like, who's Michael Jackson? It's rare. But what's not rare is when I say, you know Prince? And they're like, yeah, not really. And I think it's important to acknowledge that I feel the dance industry and I feel like Michael used dance to propel a lot of his content. Whereas Prince, I think he relied on the artistry of his content by itself. And I know this is the first and last, maybe not like wrestling reference, but I know previously I said, I feel like if you take Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Undertaker had the mystique that Prince did, and Michael Jackson just had the it factor, like kind of well-rounded around the board that Shawn Michaels had.
Right.
And I really anyone that wants to challenge me on that, I I'm fine with it. I would love to hear from you. Drop it in the comments or reach out. You know how to get a hold of us.
Right. I mean, I would say in the defense that I would think it's the reverse, because I would think that Michael would be the Undertaker, because the Undertaker is like, to me, like the global, like when you think of WWE, WWF, whatever, you think Undertaker, like, and the big guys, but like, Undertaker being a global thing, like when you have like when you're talking about certain signatures of like rest in peace, the tombstone, you think of the Undertaker. Just as like for Michael, if you're thinking Thriller, automatically you think of Michael Jackson. You're thinking of Black and White. A lot of Billie Jean, automatically think of Michael Jackson. Where Shawn Michaels is your Prince, where he was that bad boy dude that he came from the DX era, and kind of was not always trying to play by the rules, but making his own rules, like kind of like the quote unquote sex symbol in a way, where Prince had that mystique to him, where he used a lot of his sexual content to, not that he used it, but like I think for that he was more in a and I say that word lightly, like like he used his sexuality to get him to where he was, along with being a musician. Where Michael, he didn't really rely on that. He used his talents with dance and music. He didn't really show a sexual side, where Prince was like, when you think Prince, he was like, almost like that, like sex symbol of the 80s. So I would think the reverse of what you were saying, but I think you can have the same debate in your reverse side too.
Yeah, I think you actually just shut me down super fast. Because everything you just said made me feel real dumb. But
no, I agree what you said though. I mean, because
I think it can be taken either way. Like the perspectives are both there.
Right. Absolutely.
I wasn't looking at it from like, HBK, Heartbreak Kid, like sex symbol, where Prince sexuality, like you said, was like definitely a component to his aura, where Michael, he would pop up on stage and stand there and stand still, and the Undertaker would spend 15 minutes to get to the ring. Like he like, yeah, I mean, it I think it can go both ways, but I think your argument actually holds a lot more merit and weight than what I said. I was just like, oh, this, and
right.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, I think they both had that, sex appeal to them, but I think with and again, I'm saying these words very lightly with but like I think with Prince's quote unquote flamboyant sexuality type of mannerisms that he used to do, versus Michael, like you just said, he would just go out on stage and just like be there, and girls would be like fainting in the front row just by seeing the aura of Michael Jackson, where Prince would just go out there with those chaps, and then people would be wanting like, okay, where am I going to bed with you tonight? Not me, but yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. Are you sure about that? John Cena, are you sure about that?
Are you sure about that? Yeah, the only thing that Michael ever really did was like he'd throw one hand on his crotch and then drop the other one back and then do the thrust.
Yeah.
And he'd take both hands and then he like swivel around kind of thing.
Right.
But that was it. Like I feel like Prince definitely exuded like you were saying, like a sexual tone in his performance and the way he
Right.
presented himself. Where Michael, I feel like, was just like, I'm uncomfortable always. Like, you know,
Yeah. Like, here's the thing with that. Like, you wouldn't necessarily probably bring your kid to a Prince show or concert where
yep,
you're okay bringing your kid to a Michael Jackson concert,
yep.
you know?
So quick insert on the sports front.
Mm-hmm.
When our Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, Justin Timberlake did the halftime show. And
Mm-hmm.
JT got on the piano and he did Purple Rain, and it was like a
Yes.
Prince tribute.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took the camera out, and then they drew the Prince symbol like around the stadium. Like it was
Yeah.
obviously a CGI thing.
Right.
And I was like, oh, why are they doing that? Oh, Purple Rain, because they're in Minnesota where the Vikings, like, that's that was their stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I never knew that Prince was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that was like a tribute to him in his
Right.
hometown. I didn't know all that. I was just like, oh, Prince just passed, and that's kind of why they're doing it. Oh, they're in the Vikings stadium, so that's why JT's doing that. I didn't know he was actually born there.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of it until, they kind of brought it, you know, to the people's attention. But yeah, that I don't remember that specific uh one, but I do remember his uh Super Bowl show print that Prince did. And I think they have a YouTube uh video on it. I'll have to search it real quick, but they gave like it's almost like a short film documentary of the day leading up to his performance, that they were calling for rain. It was a dreary day, cloudy, and they weren't sure if he was going to be able to play because of it being rainy out and everything. And I think just before he came out, like, it's one of those like things like, oh, like it stopped raining, or it just like was like clear. It wasn't supposed to be like clear weather, and he came out, did his whole thing, and just as Purple Rain started, like either the weather started changing, and I think it may have started raining or something. I'll have to look at it again. But just it was like that perfect moment when Purple Rain just hit, and it was just like one of those magical moments. It was a cool thing. And then they had the Prince symbol show up on the center of the field and everything, so that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, between the both of them, I don't really recall either of their halftime shows. So that's something that I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
Yeah, I kind of remember Prince's more than Michael's, because I think Prince's was more recent than Michael's, because I think Michael's was more in the 90s. So I mean, we weren't really watching Super Bowl halftime performances at that point.
Yeah, all I know is like the one clip I remember is Michael just shot up and he stood there and he stood still for like a minute. He didn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the aura that he brought, which is, like I say, like similar to wait a second, now I'm confused. Did I say Undertaker is to, because I'm
Yeah,
confused now.
I think you had the opposite of me. I was saying Michael is the Undertaker. You thought Prince was the Undertaker. So we were on two different spectrums.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that would take me back away from that argument is the longevity of their careers too, right? Like, I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
Undertaker lasted so much longer, and Michael Jackson, like his legacy was like
Yeah.
super long. Not that Prince didn't last, but I feel like Michael was just like
because
through
he
the
started from
roof.
when he was like a young kid. So Prince wasn't really a child star. He
Mhm.
started in, I believe in his maybe teenage, early 20s. I could be wrong, but like you said, with longevity, Michael started, really young in the Jackson 5. So he just knew stardom at that point from an early age. So yeah, and when it comes to longevity, yeah, I mean Michael's got him beat.
Yeah. So Prince was born 1958, just a year after my father. Um, and then his career kicked off in 75. So we're going like he was 17, I guess, at his start, 17 or 18. Um,
Mm-hmm.
his beginning and his breakthrough. Purple Rain was 84. So you're going, he was 25, 26, 27 about then,
Right.
which I think you and I both agree. And maybe we just save this and we'll talk about like what our favorites are per artist. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can go down that rabbit hole later on. But yeah, I don't know. I think with Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker and Michael and Prince, like you said, Michael was a child star because real mad Joe Jackson, his dad.
Yeah.
Michael, go get a switch.
Michael.
Michael.
Jermaine,
Dude, I hate
who
to
that's
laugh.
down swimming pool?
I I hate to laugh about it because like those kids were absolutely abused, right?
Petrified.
Yeah. So, and to think that we've talked about the American Dream, the Jacksons, an American Dream.
Yeah.
That movie, 300 minutes is 5 hours.
Yeah, just about. You're a better math person than me, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that long, and I was like, "Oh, networks are gonna love this because of all of the commercials and advertisements that they can use."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you and I were talking about this right before we started the episode, and you were
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I just remember there being a
Whoopsie.
ton of ads and commercials," and I was like, "I don't think it was
Uh-huh.
that long." And then we found 300 minutes. I was like, "Oh my god! Oh, okay."
And it makes
There-
sense why they put it into two parts when it first came out. Because I mean, if you, did you watch it when it first debuted, or did you watch it maybe, because I remember watching it the night it started, and they did a part 1 and a part 2 because it was so long. And I think each of it was like 2.5 hours. So they couldn't put a full 5 hour, but then again, 2.5 hours without commercials on regular television. That's probably 3-4 hours with commercials. So I think they definitely did like a part 1, and then the next night they did part 2.
yeah, I mean, let me think. That came out in 92. It debuted in 92. I don't know if they did it in the theaters or if it just went straight to TV or what. Yeah, I mean, let's see. I was 5 then. And my mom
Yeah.
always talks about how I watched Michael do Billie Jean, and I ran and I grabbed a glove and I threw it on and I tried to
Mm-hmm.
pretend to do the moonwalk. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and my older sisters at that time were already dancing. They were already in a dance studio.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it was because I knew they were dancing that it was just something that I thought was like normal, or if it was like Michael himself doing Billie Jean that I was just like, I want to be that level of greatness, and
Right.
it was just really incredible. I mean, I didn't remember it being 5 hours long, but
No.
I do remember it being long. Now,
Yeah.
I have not seen the Purple Rain movie ever. I don't know about
I've
you.
tried to watch it front to back, but I still don't think I've watched it all front to back. I think the biggest scene of it is the ending, because Prince actually puts on a concert, uh, at the end of the movie. So I think that's one of the bigger scenes that everybody really goes to. Again, I haven't seen the full movie, so if there's other parts that people love, or if you've seen it, throw it in the comments, let us know. Uh, but the one that sticks out with me from the parts that I've known is when he, ends up at the end putting on a concert, and then I think he played Purple Rain at that point. Purple Rain was the ending scene of that movie, and then he rides off in the motorcycle.
Yeah, I would imagine. Like I said, I've never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But I like, oof, my goodness.
I mean, if we're talking, the Purple Rain movie, we definitely got to talk with Michael about Thriller. You mean the Thriller movie, the Thriller music video? I'm not sure about you, but the first time my parents had the VHS tape of the Thriller movie from Michael Jackson, and it was so scary to me. My parents actually had to give it away because it was scaring the shit out of me so much. But I totally regret it to this day because it's probably a moneymaker at this point.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. I never knew that there was a Thriller movie. All I ever knew was the music video itself. That's like,
Unless, I don't think it was like if not, it might not have been like a full movie. I think it probably was just the VHS tape of the music video, and he probably just had expanded scenes on it. But it was definitely like still scary as for me, because I think I went and taught. I mentioned this in the Halloween episode that I had a big fathom for werewolves, and I think that probably sparked, other than Monster Squad, that werewolf transformation is definitely in my top 3 of like ones I was like, holy crap, this is scary. And still to this day, it almost kind of gives me a little bit of chills to watch it. But it was one of those things that how you thought of inspiration with Michael Jackson. That was the first thing that I was connected with Michael Jackson about, was watching Thriller and knowing that, when I started watching his performances, how when he would do Thriller on stage, I just thought of him as this like very scary dude that would be doing a lot of these theatrical things. So I didn't take into the fact that he was a miraculous musician, dancer, entertainer, but the Thriller aspect of the things that he did in that music video and pitch just, initially got so much, I was wrapped into it so much. So the Thriller aspect of Michael Jackson is ingrained in my brain for so long.
yeah. I mean, there is one moment in the American Dream movie, and it's where Michael's starting to go on his own and break away from his brothers, and they show him in a studio setting where he's just standing there and he's just pondering and listening to the music, and he's listening to all of the details of everything blending together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's not like a memorable moment to most people, but it's a memorable moment for me because I'm like, he's literally dissecting everything right now. And I'm like, to me, like when I hear music and when I create like the visual representation of music with my choreography, I try to listen to everything. I try to sit here and go, okay, what's going on right now? And what am I missing? and what does the
Mhm.
audience need to hear that they wouldn't hear up front. And it's just I haven't watched that in, like I told you before we signed on, like probably 30 years. It's been
Mm.
a long time. So I would
I've seen it when it comes on TV every once in a while, but I haven't seen it in a couple years. But watching it front to back, yeah, it's been a while.
it's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would have loved to have been, and I'm going to say this with both Prince and Michael. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to to witness Michael being in the studio as he's writing the Thriller album. You know, with all those classics, Human Nature, Thriller, Billie Jean, and just like you said, from the American Dream movie, when he's dissecting everything in that studio. As a musician, that puts a thing on me too, because you're kind of dissecting, you know, because Michael was such a genius in his head. He knew everything started in his head, and he would just have groups of musicians around him saying, "Hey, this is what I need you to do. This is what I need these guys to do." And he would be, you know, it wouldn't be right until it's everything that he's hearing in his head. So I think that moment really dissected what his thought process was. And one of the other good moments from that is when they show him capturing him tracking vocals for Human Nature, and just the raw emotion, because I love Human Nature. I love that song in a whole. And uh during his funeral, I loved John Mayer's rendition of Human Nature, because he didn't sing it, he just played it on guitar, because from what I was told and saw, is he felt, I am no Michael Jackson for a singer, so I feel I am not going to disrespect him in that way. I'm just going to play guitar. So he just did a whole instrumental piece of Human Nature. So if you, I mean, I'm sure millions of people have seen it, but if you haven't, please look up John Mayer's version of Human Nature at Michael Jackson's funeral. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I remember where I was specifically watching the funeral. I don't remember that, but I remember Usher singing, and he put his
Mm-hmm.
hand, like at the end, Usher just put his hand on the casket and just dropped his head,
Yeah.
and I was just like,
It made
God.
it just felt real at that point, because, you know, up until
Yeah.
then, it just was like you were on a cloud. Like, I couldn't believe it. And for the first time, it was like we talk about our dads a lot. I think that's one of the first times I really saw my dad in like a haze of, like, he could not believe Michael Jackson was not there anymore, because I think he had a big impact on my dad too. And it was just like because my mom like came out to, she's like, I think your dad's having a hard time, because I mean, there's a bit with a lot of people that were affected by his death, but you know, it's different when you have somebody close to you. And you know, my dad, he's, you know, that masculine dude, doesn't let a lot of things get to him. But you know, when my mom comes up to me and says, you know, I think he's really having a hard time with this. And
Yeah.
he was
Well,
just in this state of like, don't talk. He wasn't talking too much, just kind of like in his zone.
your dad is a musician, so
Right.
something, a loss of that magnitude, I feel like would resonate with him. Like my dad was just kind of like, you know, people die, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but you know, I've seen certain things hit my dad, but like not, it doesn't come from musicians or
Right.
athletes or things like that.
Like
It's
celebrity wise, like those type of
yeah,
things are not always like, yeah, right.
yeah. I mean, he'll randomly be like, "Oh, so and so died." Like, if I had to go back in the last 10 years, he'll be like, "Guess what? So and so died." I'd be like, "Well, that's tragic." He'd be like, "Yeah."
Gotta go to work.
Yep. Like 100%. He'd just be like, all right, well,
Toodaloo. Ta-ta.
so like if you made eggs with my pan, you gonna do those dishes or what the
Whoopsie. Yeah. Yeah, so-and-so just died. Okay. Yeah, it's sad. Those dishes aren't going to wash themselves, by the way.
100%. That's how he is. But
but
any
Prince
rate.
as a producer, that's another thing I wanted to bring up as well, because him as a producer really made me want to. I mean, there's numerous amounts of musicians, but just seeing him, that he was able to eventually start being his own music producer on a lot of his songs, really made me want to get into producing my own music as well, and just being able to be the creator of my music and knowing that's different side of how to create music, not only just by me playing a guitar and seeing what comes out, but being able to just be your own musician and writing drum parts, writing bass parts, writing guitars, vocals, different vocal lines, and being your whole, sound system. So knowing that he was able to do that, learn to mix and master all his songs, is, and Michael in the same way, he was very, very keen on being a part of the full songwriting process and the recording process, mixing, mastering, because they were both very ear savvy of like what they wanted to hear and what they were trying to get to. So I think on that way, they were both similar, that they were just gifted in music, even though they looked at music probably in different ways, but they both had a gift for songwriting and, just having the gift of music in general.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that is your take. Musically speaking, I can jump into the dance stuff if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I want to hear your side of that.
So, we were talking about like Michael passing. After he passed was when the This Is It movie came out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he was preparing for his final tour because everyone's like, "This is it. This is the last one." And he,
Yeah. Do you
went out
remember
there-
that press conference?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe he was in Europe when he did that.
Something like
press
that.
conference. But I knew, not knew, but have taken class from the one assistant choreographer, Tony Testa, and one of his dancers, Misha Gabriel, who Misha is incredible. And I'll talk about him at a different time. I will share kind of his story with you off air so that we can talk about that a little bit more in depth after the fact.
Yeah.
But he's he's just great. And when you watch the documentary, which I have not watched in probably 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that documentary as well.
Well, to think it's been almost 14 years since Michael Jackson passed away now. It's just crazy.
What it is. I was going to say, it's just crazy to say that.
To even think. Because Prince passed, hold on.
What, 2016, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So that was, almost 7 years ago even.
Right, because Michael passed in 2009.
2009. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just weird to think that they've been gone this long already, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the This Is It documentary from Michael, just watching that and watching, Michael wasn't even performing full out on stage.
Mm-hmm.
His dancers were, because they were like, we're dancing behind Michael. There's no less than 150% every time that you go out there and you're working. So it was.
I mean,
It was.
you're at the top of the totem pole if you're dancing with Michael Jackson at that point. I mean, there is no other like limit from there. You're at the top of the mountain. I would believe if you're dancing for Michael Jackson,
you are the cream of the crop, 100%. Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
I am the cream.
So I mean, watching that was really, really cool. I mean, like to hear one of my favorite choreographers. He's from the Monster Circuit.
Yeah.
Jamal Sims. I had, when I was traveling with them, I had like the class I was in, we had a sit down like mini Q&A with him, and he was like, yeah, my first major breakthrough was when I did the music video for Remember the Time with Michael Jackson. And I was just like, oh my God, what? I was just
That's insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, to think I'm in the room with a guy that danced like with Michael in that video.
Yeah, I have a moment of something similar, and I'll tell you after we get done the this episode, because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I have a similar situation where I'm basically sitting next to a guy who's been next to like a legend, a god in the music industry.
Sure,
this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool feeling because you fanboy fast without
100%.
without even realizing it. You're like, all right, stay cool, like act like it's nothing, but also show appreciation. And you're just like, oh my God, hey.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, all composure is in it last year, 2022. Yeah. Like whatever. It's lost.
Yeah,
dude. Okay, so let's break it down. And we're going to base this off of Spotify's top 10 when you search the artist. We're going to go down the list and do that. Only to be fair, because I think Michael Jackson clearly has way many more number ones, whereas Prince probably does not. But at the same time, some of his are very, very good, and you can't dismiss them, right?
Yeah, I would say he probably doesn't have as many one hits as Michael does, but he's definitely got those memorable, like, this is a Prince song type of vibe that, like, once you like turn this on, it's a Prince song. Or if it's something that he wrote for somebody else, because that's something that I didn't even know until after he passed, that he wrote songs for so many other artists that we listen to today, and that when you listen to them back, you're like, oh, I can see the Prince influence in that. So yeah, let's look at this list.
Okay, starting with Prince. Let's start 10 and work our way up. Little Red Corvette.
Yes, I know that one. That's a nice little tune. And we won't throw any audio on so we don't get flagged or anything. But yeah, Little Red Corvette.
Yeah, I just played the first 7 seconds and immediately I was like, I think I want to get a couple of like best of Prince vinyls for my collection.
Oh yeah, I think that would definitely add to a good collection if you have at least a vinyl or two of Prince. So
yeah, I mean, Cheyenne got me the Justin Timberlake vinyls, so I'm like, I want to get all of those to be able to say, boom, I have all of them. I have that one Linkin Park. I have a Billie Eilish one. I'm pretty stoked about them. I need a better record player that will actually really push the vinyl sound out, because the one that I have now is, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, we're here, but I want a better one. Definitely.
Right.
Number 9, I Want to Be Your Lover. Okay, classic. I want to be your lover. Dum dum dum. Boom boom boom. Like they made that one so fun. And I feel like the thing with Prince is, like I was saying about Michael, I feel like he utilized dance for the visual projection of his music. And I feel like for Prince, it was just like, you don't even need it. It's just like, listen to this greatness and go, right?
They were both entertainers in two separate entities. Like you had Michael that had the musicology, the dance, and entertainment aspect, where you were entertained by a Prince show with, I mean, more music, and his wasn't really too dance esque with it, but he had some, moves to. But his number one thing was the music that you were entertained by, and by the fact that that's the way you were going to an actual concert where you go to a Michael Jackson concert, you're seeing a show, like a full blown out like
production.
There you go. That was the word. You're seeing a production where Prince, you're going to a legit show concert where you're seeing a production with Michael. So but you were both entertained by each of them.
Yes. So this number 8 song from Prince, I'm not super familiar with, and I'm curious about how Spotify ranks everything, because it shows the number of views and it's got 7 million views. So I'm just kind of like, maybe throw that one to the side, because the other views are double and triple digits of views. And I know the rest of them absolutely and can speak to them. So number 7, I Will Die For You. Okay. Literally, I feel like that song just crushed the 80s entirely.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I hope that song came out in the 80s and I didn't get that wrong. But
we'll edit the year if we find out that it's a different year. But yeah,
it's not that
you're looking at it. You're looking at a specific playlist, right? Or are you on Prince's Spotify page?
I just typed in Prince on Spotify and I'm looking at popular top 10.
Okay.
So after I Will Die For You is 1999, which is obviously a very classic song, because he wrote that years and years before the millennium changed over. I don't know what year he wrote it, but I'm sure it was in the late 70s, early 80s. And everyone's just like, oh, yeah, we're excited for the change of the millennium. And he really like bit into that and was like, oh, yeah, watch this. I'm going to release this song and it's going to get super popular and everyone's going to love it. And everyone was like, yep. And Will Smith was like, let me bite off of you and create this Will 2K song, right?
Mm-hmm. For the millennium. Little Fred Durst.
Okay.
Okay, cut.
Okay, cut. Let's Go Crazy is fun, but definitely not anywhere near my top 5 for me. For Prince tracks. Okay, we got to talk about this next one, because this was a topic of conversation that I had earlier this week, where I knew like rhythms of songs and I heard things, and every time I'd hear it, I'd just like not say the words because I didn't know what they were saying. I'd just be like,
you kind of mumble the words.
You kind of just mumble it, right? So, Raspberry Beret is a perfect example of that, because when he goes into go boom, I'm just over here like, oh god, this sounds great. I don't know what the f he's saying, but I'm down. Right?
You don't know what he's saying, but it's provocative.
Keeps the people going.
Put in the comments if you know which reference that is and what movie.
Or what other song that is, because it's sampled in another song. Number 3, probably my favorite beat. And as a dancer, I have to say, when I am, I would never want to set a piece to this song specifically. And it's like, and I'm sure you can relate on a front where you're like, oh, I would never want to recreate this, but I just love this cadence and this rhythm. When Doves Cry, every time that I am in the car and that plays, I definitely, number one, don't change the station. And number 2, I would never use it for a project, only because I'm just like, I love this and never say never. Like in 5 years from now, Anthony's going to be like, remember when you said you weren't going to do that? And
remember on the podcast you said you weren't going to do that? Oh yeah.
Sorry, y'all. Got to do what I got to do.
Because you don't want to cut up something that's already great. Because I know when you're doing your edits, you're trying to cut down into a certain time signature, or taking a bunch of different songs and mingling them into a sectioned song. But like when you have a song like that, like where do you cut from? Where do you start? Where do you cut? What part? Like, because that whole song is just like brilliant, So it goes with a lot of songs, but like definitely,
it's not even like the verses or the vocals or what he's saying that sells me. It's like the rhythm. Dum dum boom 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 boom. And I'm just like, this is so well done. All of the contrast, I'm like, that right there.
Yep.
It makes me not say it's better than any Michael song, but say it's on his level. And that's why I was absolutely okay with talking about the two of these and not comparing and contrasting and saying who's better and who's not.
Right.
I think we're just,
because it's very hard to kind of, and that's why like in the beginning of the episode, we didn't want to say like, oh, we're trying to debate who's better, because honestly, it's very hard to determine who is better. I have friends, or a friend that is a diehard Prince fan, and he thinks Prince is way better than Michael, and he will stand by it like through and through. But then I also have people that I know that are probably diehard Michael fans, and they're going to feel Michael is way better than Prince, where I feel, it's hard for me to pick. It's almost like, I feel they're equal, but they also have their cons just like anybody. But it's very hard because they came up in the same era, and they were almost somewhat doing the same stuff in a way. So it's kind of hard, but like you said, Michael was more of the global aspect. He got that global love, where Prince, I don't think really he has a little bit of global love, but not the fact and the impact like Michael did.
Gee, and this is hard, like, to compare, because we were talking about like exuding like a tone of sexuality, like how do we correlate this over to the females? And maybe we sit on that and we can say that maybe at the end, or we can even poll it. Who would you like us to talk about on the female spectrum? Because obviously I would throw Madonna in the mix, but also who do you throw across from that? Or do you want to do the Britney versus Christina, or like, I mean, there's so many different ways you could go about that.
Absolutely.
But let's stay on track here. Number 2 on Spotify for Prince is a song that not only did I grow to appreciate in my adult years, and I've used it for one of my projects that, like, when my family opened our business and I had the soloist, I was like, you're the perfect person for this song. And she knocked it out of the ballpark. I'm not going to name drop her. But as I was growing up, I watched, I was like probably somewhere between 11 and 13. And I watched these 2 older girls do this song. And I was just like, oh God, this is just so good. And actually, it was choreographed by my probably second inspiration into dance, like after Michael Jackson, as far as like, oh, a real human being that I met that I was just like, I want to be that guy. Because he was just so well respected. His work was just always awesome. And I was like, yep, I'd like to be him. Not him
Right.
specifically, but I would like to be on his level of success.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kiss.
Gotta love that song.
It's so fun, man. And the rhythm and the timing is just so well done because like it's very like Kiss. And it's like slow and drawn out. And then you get to the middle, and then you get to the guitar lick, and then you get to the end, and then he's like screeching like he stepped on some Legos or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I love this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I never knew Prince could I never knew Prince could rip on the guitar until again later when I really started dissecting Prince, and I'm like, wow, this dude can actually like rip pretty well. And you know, I just knew him of like just being a regular guitar player and doing his thing, but I never knew he can just like do riffage and just shred on a guitar. I'm like, okay, now I'm paying attention, you know? So especially with, you know, the solos in Purple Rain and you know, I think Little Red Corvette has a little solo in there. You know, I'm not sure if we mentioned this one, but the song Cream by Prince comes to play because there's this acoustic performance that he did at the Webster Hall. I think it was back in, I'm looking on YouTube right now, I think it was back in 2004. He did a small concert, just a regular acoustic concert. And he did a couple covers and a bunch of like originals. Cream was one of them, but it was all acoustic. And it was, you know, a definitely like cool side to see of like Prince, you know, stripping down to just acoustic and playing that type of song. And, you know, it was because I was trying to learn that. And this is something funny, I'll tell you real quick. I was trying to learn that for covers because, you know, I play Purple Rain here and there at my shows, but I was trying to think what's another Prince song that like people know. And I'm like, let me try to play Cream. I go up to my dad. I'm like, yeah, I'm obviously trying to learn Purple Rain, trying to learn Cream. He's like, well, buddy, I don't think you want to be playing Cream in a bar. I mean, that's a little bit of like a sexual kind of song. I don't think you want to be caught playing Cream in a bar. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's fine then.
Yeah, well, think about why it's called.
Yeah, so I went with trying to learn Little Red Corvette, and that was a little more of a safer one.
Yeah, stay protected, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Queen.
Yeah. Queen. So, yeah. I mean, do you want me to wrap up this number one on? I mean, you know what the number one is for Prince, obviously.
Rain Purple.
Close. Purple Rain.
Man.
So I have a small story. I'll try to keep it real short.
Mhm.
I was like away off the grid. Didn't have cell phone service. And when I got back a couple of days after the fact, and this is like 6.5, 7 years ago almost, I got a text that was like, hey, our ballet teacher wants to do this Prince tribute. Since he had just passed, it was like it was 2016. It was like fresh off. He just passed.
Yeah.
But we were going to get news coverage. It was going to go on the news, this, that, and the other. And I didn't like sign on to it to be like, yeah, I want to be on TV. I was just like, hey, this is a tribute to Prince. Absolutely. Especially, I was told, okay, we have the mix done already. It was like 6, 7 dancers, and they were like, you get Purple Rain. So I got to freestyle Purple Rain.
Nice.
For that performance.
I don't think
which
you've ever told me this before. So.
No, I didn't. And it was like, there were TV cameras there filming, but they were like kind of jumping all over the place. And I was kind of looking at the person organizing it, and I'm just kind of like, hey, we doing this when the camera's shooting over there, or we doing this right now? And he was like, we're just going to do it right now. And I was like, cool, I'll do it right here on the sidewalk. I don't even care.
Right.
Because I didn't like choreograph it. I was just freestyling it. And then the 6 or 7 of us went to like a restaurant bar, like some streets over, not super far. And we got to do it again and perform it. And there were people inside, and they were just like, man, that was so much fun to watch. And oh my goodness, the amount of anxiety that lives in freestyle, and especially when you're performing for an audience where it's like, hey, yeah, I don't know what the F I'm doing immediately right now, because I grew up with choreography. Like, I grew up with choreographers saying, do this exactly like this. And
it's structure.
It's structure. Thank you. Perfect word. But that's like, you playing a song versus someone saying, hey, just play the guitar and have fun. Can you just play and rattle off and have a good time? I mean,
I could probably do that for a few minutes, but after a while, it's just like,
no. There are so many, not so many, but a handful of dancers, especially one of my friends of mine, that could freestyle all day long. If I just played music, I'd say react, and they would do it. They'd just be like, yeah. Like
all day, every day.
Their brain is wired into the point where it's like, hey, I hear music and I react to it. And I'm like, yeah, no wonder you can choreograph a routine in 3 hours, teach it to a group of 20 kids and say, okay, you're done. I'm out. Bye. See you.
Right.
Whereas I'm just like overthinking everything, but I'm trying to plan. I'm trying to be creative. I'm trying to be mindful. Right. But yeah, that is the Prince performance that, like you said, you didn't know about. I know I hadn't shared with you.
No.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right. Let's talk about this top 10, like the Michael top 10. It's kind of tough because, I mean, you have your songs from the newer albums that I'm like,
Right.
you know, I'm not saying they're bad by any means, but I'm like, you can't even
No pun.
throw the you can't even throw them into the equation. Okay, guess what? Number 10, Thriller.
Get out of here.
Number 10 is Thriller.
Thriller. Number 10. Wow.
I mean, I would put that up there in my top 5. Easily.
I was going to say,
Easily.
I would even say top 3 for me at least. I mean, if not top 3, definitely top 5. That would be way higher than 10. But let's keep going. It's starting off good.
We're doing great, y'all. Okay.
You're doing great, y'all.
The Way You Make Me Feel is number 9, and I'm like, that is not better than Thriller, honestly.
No, but 9 is a good number for it, though. If you're thinking top 10, that's a good number for it to be at. If you're thinking that's in the top 10, it would be lowered or higher in the like 9 or 10 position. Yeah.
Yeah. And looking up this list, it's literally number 2 is the
Whoopsie.
Because it's number 2. I'm not even documenting that as an edit because it doesn't deserve to be top 10, honestly. So number 8 would be Remember the Time, which is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm honest, as a child and as a youngin', I didn't care for it. I grew to appreciate it as I got older and understand there's so much happening here. And like I said, I also have that story with the choreographer that I didn't say this earlier. He was the first one to nominate me for that Monsters cast.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an elevated respect for him. Number 7 would be They Don't Care About Us, which I love. I love the Immortal version better. I feel like it's stronger. I feel like his story, like the History album version is meh. Okay.
Right.
Number 6. All right. We have a personal thing with this one. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Our variety show theme. Yeah. Okay. So I gotta say,
Oh.
I gotta say, I love that we had that experience with our class and everything. But amongst all of the top 10, aside from the number Poop-a-Doop, number 2, that I don't even know, that song can kick rocks. I don't even care. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough is it just exists for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And maybe that's a hot take, and maybe people will be like, oh, what are you talking? I'm like, whatever.
Remember we were doing choreography for the dance, and I just suddenly found myself up front with everybody thinking that I could dance, and then Kaz is like, what are you doing up front, Anthony? I'm like, I don't know. And then I just started moving back. Literally, somebody's just like, so you think you can really dance? I'm like, no.
You literally went Homer Simpson fading into the shrubbery, and we're just like, I'm not even in a variety show anymore. Bye.
I don't even know how I got up front. And then Kaz just points out, this kid is definitely not a good dancer. Get him the out of the front of the line.
Dude,
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No.
I'm sorry. I'm not even supposed to be here.
I think you and I probably had the most fun at the variety show our year compared to everyone else. I feel like a lot of the rest of the people, and no dig to y'all,
Hmm.
but I feel like it was just kind of like, oh, I'm doing all of these other things, so why don't I do this next?
Right.
I feel like you and I approached the variety show and looked at that like, hey, this is our championship round. And
Hmm. I think we both talked about it in the way of like this was like something to, not that we were trying to prove something to people, but it was like our way of showing like, okay, if you don't know who I am by now, this is who I am.
I'm just going to take my gloves off and say, yeah, no, I was trying to let everyone know this is who I am because I have no other way of telling you. Like,
Right.
I think you and I both handled the variety show real well, where it was just like you had your Calhoun Tubbs gig, you
Hmm.
had your Wing Cries Mary gig, which was like your serious like, hey, I'm playing.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I had my solo dance act, I had my group dance act, and um, you know, we had our cast dances, obviously. Um,
Right.
it was pretty fun, and hey, we are an hour and some change into this, so if you're listening still, thanks for being around. If you're not, then
Come on back.
check this out. I was supposed to be in a skit, and I got gutted from it because it was just like, yeah, no, we don't really need you for this. And I was just,
Hmm.
I just looked at them and I was like, okay, whatever, because I
Hmm.
knew I had my solo dance act that was just kind of like, yeah, this is everything that I'm riding on right now because I got made fun of for 6 years. And my mother wanted me to quit dancing because of all of my hardships and
Yeah.
trials and tribulations. And I stuck with it. And I was just like, no, I'm riding on this one routine.
And you stuck it, man. You
And
definitely did. I'm proud of you for it.
hey, thank you, man. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Rock with you. Okay. I will say, in like younger me, high school me, and even early 20s me, I didn't care about that song. But I will throw it on in my car as I'm driving right now, and it will just soothe me out.
Definitely, like you said, one of those tunes that you appreciate as you got older.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, not even mad about it. Smooth Criminal is next, okay?
yeah.
Definitely notable,
Yeah.
100%.
Uh huh.
Above that is Beat It. Okay, Beat It to me is top 5.
Definitely. Definitely. Definitely.
It is number 3. Uh, I don't know this Chicago track that's landing number 2. And again, it's the least viewed. So I don't understand why Spotify is like, oh, you don't even have 100,000 views or
So,
listens.
wait, what's the track for number 2?
Chicago. Never heard it in my life. So
That's weird.
I think we got to talk about Billie Jean being number 1 is important
Okay.
because I have a tough time deciding or deciphering between Billie Jean, Thriller, and Beat It. They're like my 3.
Triangle. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the trifecta for me from Michael Jackson,
Hmm.
where I'm just like, it's so good. Bad not being in there. That Chicago track can miss me and
I was just gonna say the Chicago one can get out of here, and I was thinking replace that with Human Nature, or even you just said that Bad wasn't even mentioned in there. So those two tracks definitely got to be in that top 10. So I mean,
okay, so and only because Michael is so much more mainstream popular, it's a lot easier for us to say, hey, how would you reconfigure this top 10?
Exactly.
I like the list, but I'd say there are some that need to get out and some that need to go in. Prince, I don't
100%.
know his content enough to be able to do this, but let's talk about this. Okay. So Thriller,
Yeah.
by the way, Thriller needs to be in the top 3. So that being at number 10 is
100%.
Trash.
Yeah.
Trash can.
Yeah. I don't know what that person was smoking with making Thriller number 10, but yeah, Thriller needs to be top 3. Like you said, I think your trifecta is the top 3.
Yeah. I mean, the way you make me feel can go kick rocks, and I think Bad can slide in 100%.
I would put the way you make me feel as number 10.
Okay.
And then, Bad can go in like maybe between slot 6 between 6 and 8.
I don't
think Bad is a top. I don't think Bad is a top 5.
Well,
but it's definitely within the top 10.
This whatever Chicago track needs to go, and I would even say, "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough," and They Don't Care About Us can go kick rocks, because there are other. Do you have
that They Don't Really Care About Us? I would kick that out.
Okay. Do you have another song? Because I have one immediately that needs to go in there, and maybe they're just like, oh no, that's Michael and insert artist, and I'm like, oh God, I'm looking at this top 10 and I'm like,
and this is just Michael. We weren't even talking like Jackson 5, because I had a Jackson 5 that instantly came to mind, but it has nothing to do with Michael. But if I'm thinking other songs with Michael, Smooth Criminal was on there. Trying to think.
Okay, let me help you out here. Scream with Janet. For me is that's got to be the top 10, and I would kick.
Yeah.
I mean, Chicago can go fast.
Yeah. I don't think the one I just came up with one right as you said Scream, but that is a great song too. I'm not sure if this might make a top 10, but I'm going to say it anyway. She's Out of My Life. It's a mellower tune that he had. I'm not sure if you remember it off the top of your head, but great song. I mean, it's more mellow, but great vocals, like typical traditional Michael vocals in there. So I'm not sure if it'll make a top 10, but definitely a greatest hit contender.
All right, let me tell you real fast how you can eat shit on that one. Only because PYT, man. She's Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's got to be in there.
PYT should be a top 10 contender.
Mm-hmm.
She's just
we could be here forever trying to reconstruct that top 10. But yeah, I mean, Chicago, out of here. You can easily take 3 or 4 of those songs from that list and just kick rocks, like you said. But yeah, there's so many Michael tunes that you can think of, and like we said in earlier in the episode, that Michael definitely has a lot more number ones, a lot more sellable. I can't say sellable. I'll just stick to he has a lot more number ones than Prince, but Prince's songs still keep you in that like, oh, this song is like top 10 greatest hits for Prince. Like when this song kicks on, you know where you were, blah blah blah, that type of nostalgia type of thing. But
I
Michael
think,
being the global person he was, he's definitely he blows Prince out of the water.
yeah, I think as like a visual performing arts person, if I'm in my car driving longer, I'd rather listen to Prince because
Mm,
um like Michael's content is you want to see it because it's a production,
true,
right?
true, true,
So
true.
I feel
It's a
like
good way to think.
I feel like and I think that this helps match us um from a visual perspective to
Uh
see
huh.
the dancing. um I don't see it with Prince's stuff hardly ever. I see it with Michael's stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Audibly, and like I said, if I was going on a road trip, I wouldn't say, "Oh, let me listen to Michael's stuff," because I feel like Michael's stuff would make me A, want to dance, and B,
Mm,
I'd want to see a production immediately. As soon as I heard stuff, I could play Prince on a car ride and be like, I'm enjoying this so much.
yeah.
So I think that's a good way to round out where we're getting here.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think, Anth?
Uh, I thought this was an awesome start to this little, you know, idea that we're trying to do, hopefully monthly or every once in a while, to kind of compare artists or dancers, or maybe eventually down the line, maybe a dancer and an artist of that have like certain compare and contrast values. This is something that we wanted to try to start putting into the podcast for an episode or even a segment. But if we have enough, we can make it an episode. Nonetheless, we can talk a lot about Michael and Prince. So yeah, this was fun. Just because both of us coming from a dance background, me coming from a music background, Michael and Prince just fit best with us because, you know, I can talk Prince and music all day long, where you can dissect Michael on a dance level, just like I can dissect Prince on a music level. And, you know,
Sure.
and I can, and vice versa. We can both, you know, respect them for the music and the dance. Cause like you just said, you want to, you want to visually see Michael first, where Prince you can hear him and appreciate. Prince you can still get up and dance to him, but you're gonna hear the audible of Prince, where Michael, you're automatically thinking show production, this and that, dance moves, choreography, because that's the first thing you hear from Michael. The dance is the secondary part, or the dance is number one. Music is secondary, where music is primary for Prince. So two great artists, goats in their uh
Own right.
honor,
Yeah.
in their own right. Yeah, and it's just a shame that they're both no longer with us, because I would have liked to have seen them hopefully come together and eventually do something, but we will never get that. uh you know uh yeah.
So 1983, Michael Jackson and Prince are on stage with James Brown. I've seen it before, and
Yes, me too.
that is as far as I know, once in a lifetime
Hmm.
collaboration. And just to round out the episode, um, we're we're not saying one's better than the other, and we're not going to do that. I think we're
No,
just going to
no.
talk about why this one is great and why this one is great.
We'll let the audience decide, who's better or who their favorite is. But
Yeah.
this is our rendition of, giving our perspectives on both Michael and Prince. But you feel free to leave it in the comments, who you think is better, who do you like better, what are your favorite moments, what are your favorite songs. Leave them in the comments, let us know.
And also in the comments, let us know who you would like us to discuss this versus that, like in comparison.
Yes.
Because I have like a handful of ideas that I can do for this. But I would love our audience to say, hey, I'd love if you guys talked about this band versus this band, or this artist, this soloist. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you all for listening along. This has been One Set. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. If you don't know where to find us yet, that's a you problem.
Not a one, but a you. And also, don't forget about the merch, guys. We do have our own online merch store. Feel free to support the pod, pick up some merch. We got some t-shirts, coffee mugs, tumblers, sweatshirts. And again, you can always email us. Let us know what type of merch you want to see. We might come up with some new designs for the spring/summer, get a little summer line going. And, hit us up with an email. Let us know what you're thinking. And, bro, this has been fun. I love you. Thanks for being here once again. I'm with my co-host. If you guys are watching us for the first time, my name is Anthony Irvin. This is my co-host, Jim Green. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of One Set. We will see you on the next one.
Anthony, love you, brother. Thank you so much. Cheers. On to the next one. Talk soon.